Hey, how's it going? It's our second episode of Hop Psychology. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And how you doing, Damon?
Good.
Good.
Hopefully, yeah, I can't look at that and do this.
You can't.
I have to look at
You gotta
you.
look at me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can look at your face but it works better if I'm talking to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um, hey,
Hey,
what's up?
not
We
much.
got we got we got the second one that we're doing today,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice.
Yeah. So what are we drinking? What do you think of this?
This beer,
Yeah.
I like it. It's good. I
Yeah.
said it. Yeah, it's not as cold as I'd like it to be. Mike Kiss. I bet you it's a dude's name.
Maybe, or it's a type of fish, maybe, since there's a
Mike.
fish on the
I don't think so.
label. But anyway, it's from Black Rocks. It's from a brewery up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
It's good.
It is.
So yeah, man, we did the a video, or not a video, a little short about awareness, and hopefully people enjoyed that or learned something from it. But that is one of those things, as we were talking about earlier, that we could go on and
Mhm.
on and on
And on forever.
forever about. It's a very important.
Yeah, because
First step.
it's where you begin.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people out there who don't think about this stuff like we do. Like we've been therapists for, I mean, over a decade, both of us, I think, and we are. I mean, we think.
I think there's a lot,
You
just
know,
like in any profession, you
yeah,
take for granted.
yeah,
that,
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. We take this
Yeah.
for granted, and
But I mean, I guess it's been a part of my own
mhm.
personal growth experience. So it's kind of solidified in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, I think, because I've been a person with so many issues that I've worked through and
Yeah, same.
gotten a little better at.
Same here. I mean, there's a lot of things I learned in school that I already kind of had figured out on my own. So,
Yeah.
not saying that the general public knows nothing about any of this, but I mean, it's just come second nature to us. So,
Yeah.
hmm
So, yeah, I guess in what I wanted to get into, at least the idea that awareness or who you are is invisible in a
hmm
lot of different ways. And I always look at it kind of like, so you go out into the country and it smells like cow shit, and you're like, oh, it stinks. But,
hmm
the guy that's out there goes, oh,
yeah,
smells good to me.
or he just doesn't smell it at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, yeah, exactly. Or go
yeah.
ahead.
The town that my grandparents used to live in had a paper mill, and you wouldn't think that that would give off an odor, but oh my gosh, it would just give off this just very sulfury, rotten egg smell when you were in several miles of the vicinity. And every time I get to my grandparents, it's always we'd get out of the car and it was always like, oh my gosh, the paper mill. And then with a few
Mm-hmm.
minutes, you're not even thinking about it anymore. It
Yeah.
just blends right in.
It's Rockford had a special aroma when
hmm
Wolverine Worldwide was there, the polluter of our world. Um,
What do
but
they make?
oh, they were tanning leather. It was the
Oh, okay,
tannery, and so the whole downtown area would smell like
gotcha.
poop.
Yeah.
So,
So
but
yeah, when you're living and you're just surrounded by poop,
well, yeah, and
you kind
another
of get used to it, right? It's like a fish in water.
yeah,
Fish don't know they're in water.
another example is like if you carry a heavy backpack.
hmm
Initially, you put it on, you're like, but eventually it becomes a
Right.
part of that weight that you carry. You don't see it, and
hmm
so that idea that you have to spend a lot more time taking a real close look at who you are because you feel like it's normal, right? I
hmm
mean, somebody who's anxious all the time. Well, you're idling high, right?
Yeah.
You're always up here, and so it takes some real looking and maybe some listening to some people outside of your head
hmm
to point some of those things out to you, like your culture. And maybe I brought that up last time, but that idea, like if you ask somebody what a whooping is, right? I use
Yeah.
that a lot. Well, if I ask three people what a whooping is, you're going to get three different
hmm
examples of that. So,
Yeah, and I think I probably brought up to the aces and how you'll have somebody read the aces and they come to some of these areas that talk about where you abused as a kid, and they'll give you some examples and they look at it and they're just like, what? I don't consider that abuse. That was just
Yeah,
normal, you know?
yeah.
Totally not even aware of it.
And so, yeah, I think people don't really know they don't have the words a lot
Yeah.
of times,
Oh
the
yeah. Hmm.
vocabulary to really even explain what it is that they're
Hmm.
feeling. If it's like, hey, wait a minute, no, that is anxiety. No,
Hmm.
that's depression. What
Hmm.
you're speaking of, I feel frazzled. I'm just,
Yeah.
I feel okay. So, so part of what I have to do with myself and helping other people to do is to go, wait a minute, do you even see?
Yeah.
Do you even see? I always break it down into that biopsychosocial kind of way. It's like,
Yeah.
what does A, B, or C look like? What does your anxiety look like physically? What
Hmm.
does it look like psychologically? What does it look like socially?
Yeah.
And in all those things, especially the psychological part,
Right.
is something that takes a very long time to see and identify. And
One of the things about the biopsychosocial model too is these are not just separate categories that don't influence one another,
sure,
right? It's all kind of one thing. These are like three dimensions that kind of all intermingle and interact. So,
yeah, oh, well, yeah, one leads into the
hmm
other, and
and so being able to tease, out,
yeah. Well, what's the big one for you? Maybe usually one of
the
those things is going to make the most impact. And what stinks about it though is that you get you get enough. I was talking to those guys at work the other day about the idea that mental health isn't just working on keeping you from being crazy.
right.
It's maximizing your life and your potential and
Hmm.
maximizing your well-being, which is something I don't think people in general do well, right? We don't finish our medication, right?
Hmm. Yep.
We
We get to the point where just we're
yeah,
comfortable,
yeah.
and then that's it.
So we can function,
Yeah.
right? And so I worked out good enough that I can kind of see like
Hmm.
a little
Little improvement.
improvement in my stomach when I look in the, well, that could be the beginning of a little six pack there. I think I'm going to go have a cheeseburger. But we do that. It's like, I feel pretty good about
Yep.
this. And so then, so I guess getting to that point is, and then we just stop the whole process. We don't get any deeper.
Yep.
We don't get any further in development than just kind of existing
Yeah,
without
because
too
we
many
we've
problems.
because we'll get to a point where we are not comfortable. We don't like something about ourselves,
Hmm.
and then that will be the motivator, right? To kind
Yeah.
of get the ball turning, and then start kind of going to that that contemplation, stage, and then it'll move us into action and all that, and then yeah, once we get, like I said, comfortable, and that those negative whatever
Hmm.
drives that were pushing us to make those improvements are kind of gone. It's like,
Hmm.
like this is a lot of work. Why am I going to keep doing this if I don't, if
Yeah.
if I'm feeling better now.
Hmm.
So, and then we tend to kind of lapse back into old habits, and we get uncomfortable again eventually, and then you know yeah, it's a cyclical process. It's a cyclical thing.
So what's the difference between somebody that has that higher standard to say,
Yeah. Hmm.
no, I want to like be uber healthy, or I'm sure that there's probably mental illness involved in some of those things too,
Yeah.
like going
Yeah.
over the top, being an
Yep.
extremist
Hmm.
with those, whatever. I mean, that's a good coping
Right,
skill,
because well,
right? Being
anything
healthy.
that you are that devoted to, whether it's your physical appearance, or your body, or your lawn, right? I mean, I've got I've had neighbors where their lawns are like
Yeah.
immaculate, and it's like, geez, it looks great, but man, that's
Yeah.
you think about her lawn a lot, you know, like way
Yeah.
more than I want to think about,
So awareness in
you know.
that case would
It,
be like, why do I have to
yeah.
cross
Then you
cut
start
my
asking.
lawn and get down on my ear
Mm-hmm.
with a pair of scissors?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And there's a healthy level of well, you know, it makes me feel good to kind of see it,
sure.
and you know that satisfaction you have of, you know, having a nice looking property or a nice looking body or whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But no, I do think there's a almost like a level of obsession, you know, with people who are like that, you know. I have an obsession with learning. Like all I do is try to like learn more and gain more knowledge, and you know, whether it's science or philosophy, history, whatever, you know, that's my obsession. I'm always like, you know, trying to learn more about the world and make
Mm-hmm.
sense of this, you know, this life and just reality in general.
Yeah, and to be excessive in certain things isn't bad. I mean, whatever. It's like we're all going to be excessive in some ways. You might as well
Hmm.
do it in some way that's going to be productive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe you're a health nut. Okay,
Hmm.
well, hey, there could be worse things to
Yeah. Have you seen
go
the
nuts about.
documentary on Netflix about that guy who's trying to live forever or live at least as long as he can? And
I don't know. There's
he's
probably been a
basically made.
million of those, right?
No, this is like one that just came out recently. This guy's like a multimillionaire, probably a billionaire, who knows? And oh, he's basically making himself a guinea pig to, you know, do any sort of life extension, you know, supplements or genetic modifications or whatever. He's got this really strict regimen he follows, and yeah, it's like yeah, okay, good for you, buddy. You know, you'll probably help us discover some, you know, helpful things in the future, and you know, I kind of hope he's successful, but I'm also like, geez, you know, like that's another thing that's where it's like, this is probably, you know, gone beyond just I want to be fit and healthy and extend my life to like an obsession, right?
Well, I got to wonder the journey that this guy took to getting into the limelight. You
Mm-hmm.
know, is this a manufactured kind of thing? Whatever. You know,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. Yeah, did this? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be my thing, man. And so again, you know, motivations. What's underneath this?
Mm-hmm.
What is
Yep.
going on with this guy that he has to do this? That what is there that this unmet need that maybe he's trying to accomplish
Yeah.
through doing this sort of thing? And so,
You know, you think like, well, why do you want to live forever? Like, what is it about that? And I haven't watched the whole documentary. I kind of started watching it, and I think I probably fell asleep or something. But um, you know, ultimately, maybe it's fear of death, right? Like, I think that could be it. I don't know. I haven't heard him talk about that, but I mean, that might be an obvious one. He's afraid of dying, and he's got the resources to try not to do that. So, you
yeah.
know, and I think the fear of death is a driver for a lot of things that we don't even think are connected to it. You know?
Yeah, we all have underlying motivations. We all have,
Yeah.
and that's not a bad thing.
No, of course not.
But I mean, and I think a lot of what we do is by nature. I mean, it's unintentional,
Hmm.
and I think being aware of okay, this is excuse me, what I'm trying to accomplish here
Hmm.
is it gives you a little more. It's a little more power, a little more direction, and
Yeah.
and none of those things are inherently bad. It's just, hey, I want to at least be in charge of this.
Yep.
And so I think about like depression and the idea that I'm choosing to be depressed right now. I am depressed right now. And then it gives me that control to say, okay, I can harbor this and maintain this, or I can
So it's
choose
interesting you
to.
said that you're choosing to be depressed right now. What do you mean by that? Because I think a lot
Well,
of people would say, I don't choose to be depressed.
well, I think I'll say not necessarily choosing to be depressed, but choosing as to what I do with that depression,
Hmm.
right? If I misguide myself and say, oh, it's these people that are around me, or it's my job or these things that just never change, I don't really acknowledge that the problem is me. And so that is where I can say, all right, I can choose to continue to wallow in this and
Mm-hmm.
amplify this, I guess, in a
Yeah.
intellectual way,
Sure.
or I can, just hold my ground and get through the
Yeah.
day. But a lot of times it's, yeah, I don't know. It's sometimes just the awareness that it's me. I'm angry.
Yeah.
I'm depressed.
Right.
I'm anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depression especially is definitely a mental illness that has a that has a deep biological dimension, depending on the type of depression, right? Because we know there are different types of depression. There's that depression, NOS or not otherwise specified, which is usually more of a cognitive. It has to do with your thinking and the way you're perceiving the world, versus major depression, which I don't know if you've had those, seen those people in the past, or like
I've
I
been
remember
there.
when I
Yeah.
worked in a psych hospital for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
there were people there who couldn't get out of bed,
Yeah.
and if they could get out of bed, if they had the strength, they would just off themselves because
Yeah.
that's how bad it was, right? And it's more than just, there's that intractable
Sure.
depression that's really difficult to treat, where you try
Mm-hmm.
everything. I mean, that's what people are using ketamine for
Sure.
now to treat that. But so there's different types of depression, and I think I think you're right. When it comes to that kind of cognitive
Sure.
depression, where it's more about your thinking patterns, that is creating that sense of hopelessness and lack of
Mm-hmm.
control over things, lack of control over your own life, which then makes you feel hopeless. Yeah, there's definitely a lot you can do as far as changing the way you're thinking, being more active even when you don't feel like it, socializing even when you don't feel like it. There's things you can do to kind of get out of that funk, and it is more of a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made that distinction, though, because there's a lot of folks that just don't have that understanding of that.
Mm-hmm.
That will, I mean, we all do it, applying their own experiences, their own understanding
Yeah.
to life. You just got to get up,
Right. Mm-hmm.
wash your ass, and get outside. And it's something so much deeper than that.
Yeah, I think it makes me think of that. I think it's a cartoon of like a person who's like burning at the stake or something like that, and there's someone who's talking to him, going like, "Maybe you should try yoga."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's it. I think that there's a certain level that we have control over, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's just a level of mental illness that requires medication.
Yeah.
And um, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can speak to that myself, just with my own personal issues with anxiety.
yeah,
You know, I remember all the way back to being a kid, taking piano lessons, and I was at one of my piano recitals, and I was all excited. I had like several pieces I was gonna do, and I practiced them backwards and forwards. I could play them without the music. I knew them like the back of my hand, and I was actually pretty excited about it. And the day of, I'm sitting there waiting for my turn. I'm looking, following the program. And as it's getting closer and closer to me, my heart is like pounding out of my chest.
yeah,
I can barely breathe. I'm questioning whether I'm going to be able to do it,
yeah.
whether I'm going to be able to make my fingers press the keys, or, because I'm just feel paralyzed with fear. And it was just, I remember sitting there just like going, why? Why do I feel this way?
Yeah,
Like, this
isn't that
makes
crazy?
no sense. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I started piano when I was 9. So I don't know, I was probably 12 at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? This
Yeah.
makes no sense. I've been looking forward to this. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
And now I just am like terrified. And, and then going through school, and anytime I had to give some sort of presentation, just getting up there and you can barely speak, and I sound like, my voice sounds like I'm gonna cry, even though I know I'm not, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to realize that, oh, I have social anxiety.
Yeah.
I have this fear of being in front of people, and it's just the fear of being judged,
Yeah.
you know? And my brain is hypersensitive to that, and for whatever reason, I it's not like I had previous,
Yeah.
this is not like a nurture thing where I had previous experiences of being humiliated in front of people, and there was no prior traumatic experience or
Yeah.
something that would make me feel that way, right? And of course, then talking to my mom, and lo and behold, she has the same horrible fear. And even when she was in college, she had a speech class, and she talked to her advisor into letting her skip it because she was going to school to be a secretary. And she's just like, why do I even have to take this? And yeah, I mean, she wouldn't even take the class. And it's like, oh yeah, this is something that is something in my genetics, right?
And that's, yeah,
That's my baseline. It's just there. I'm just born with it.
Yeah. And logically, it doesn't make any sense,
Nope.
right? And you had mentioned that.
That's why it's a phobia.
And I could do anything I want, but there's something primal in there that just triggers some of these fight or flight survival sorts of things. Like, and let's face it, in our history as human beings, how often did it occur, or what would that mean if there were a tribe of people all paying attention to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that may not have meant the same thing, right?
Right.
You probably want to be more one of the herd, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to just, so yeah, I think we come by these things naturally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can speak a lot about that, and maybe at some point I will, like talking about how much anxiety that I've had and all the different things that I've had to do to try to work around it. I've done a lot of work in trying to understand it, frame it, metaphors up the wazoo to deal with it, mantras, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, and it's a variety of different things, but it's just this thing that happens. So,
Yeah. And I honestly, I mean, I do think that there's probably someone in my past, on my mom's side, that maybe did experience some sort of horrible trauma that involved who knows, right? And maybe that intense, whatever it was, trauma, that fear now is getting, ends up in the genes. Because I think, the external world and our, like, we're all made out of the same stuff, right? It's all ultimately just one thing that's, in constant interaction. And I do think that experiences do imprint themselves on our genes, and they get past our epigenetics. That's
I hope
and it
not.
gets passed. No, I
Just for my kids' sake, I hope
yeah,
not.
yeah.
I don't know. At least, hopefully, the good stuff follows
Yeah,
along
well, and
too.
it does, and I think that's true as well.
Well, that's not cool because I've done a lot of stuff since I've had my kids.
Yeah,
So I want, I want to give them some of that too.
yeah, of
So
course.
to get a blood transfusion or something. I don't know, but I want to hook them up with some of the things I've learned since I had them. So in that idea that maybe being an older parent is a better thing.
Yeah,
You get a chance to
maybe.
hold on, man. I need to get my
Mm-hmm.
my genes up and in order
Yeah.
before I pass them on to you. Now, I'll work through some stuff first. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just demonstrates those kind of that biopsychosocial dimension, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm born
Sure.
just with that. It's deep in me. That's that bio side of it. And of course, then there's how the brain works, and how our amygdalas, which is like our fear center of our brain, our threat detection system, that is the thing that's freaking out anytime I'm in front of an audience. That's what's telling me run away, run away, run away, run away, right? And it's making it so I can't think,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the psychological piece where I'm I'm battling myself internally, about this, and this doesn't make sense, and I'm trying to rationalize and say no, you know your material or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get rid of these distorted thinking, the distorted thinking that comes up of, oh,
Yeah.
people are going to laugh at you, or people, or whatever, people are judging you, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately what it is. um
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just thinking about, like, you got to think that these folks that have like fame thrust upon them,
Mm-hmm.
that weren't prepared for that, and a lot of intellectuals and creative types are sensitive people, right? And so you got, there's a huge prevalence of drug use and all
Yep.
this within the arts,
Yep.
and mental health issues and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to consider that what some of these, and they're young when they're, I mean, and maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
good that they get famous at a young age where they're more resilient, but
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of Mitch Hedberg.
yeah,
Yeah. And how he would always perform with sunglasses on,
sure,
and always kind of have his hair kind of more in his face. And he did that intentionally
yeah.
because he just had this horrible fear of performing, you know? And so like he would just try to do all this stuff to distract himself and kind of block the audience out and just get in his own head and just kind of, right?
And yet he still did it,
Yeah.
right? Despite the fact that it
Yep.
was probably the worst thing in the world, his
Mm-hmm.
desire to follow his
Right. But that was
passion
stronger.
was stronger.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. When I had that same thing doing like open mic by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and terrified, thinking about it for weeks, months, practicing, but yet forcing myself.
Right. To do it
Explain
anyway.
that. I
I mean,
mean,
I think it is. It's we not to be cliche, but it's like that whole following your dreams thing. It's a really strong urge, right? Like what
yeah,
drives you to do that, right? There's the survival drive of, right? Like, or that comfort, like, which you'd think would make you want to run away from that. Right, I'd rather be comfortable. Right, because we started out talking about how like negative, feeling bad about yourself or whatever, these negative things like are drive us, right? But it it can also be positive. Obviously, it can also be positive
sure.
things, and sometimes those outweigh the
Yeah,
negative. Or not doing it is even more of a
yeah.
negative, right? Like you can't live with yourself not knowing that you didn't try at least. Yeah.
Hmm. That's a cool thought. Yeah, I mean, and again, I've talked to, there's a musician I talked to in a somewhat successful, probably more influential band, but
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him about his life, uh, and he basically said that he was a gay guy, and he'd been rejected by his grandmother and his family,
Yep.
and he said all I wanted was somebody to just hold me and tell me everything was going to be okay and love me, and
Yeah.
that's where this started.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is going through this musical career
Mm-hmm.
with this underlying just desire to just be loved, to
Yeah.
be understood. And
And he's getting that from the audience. Is that
yeah, I
yeah?
think he's getting that from the audience and the
Fans.
bandmates, and and also in the emotional expression and the
Mm-hmm.
release that you get out of those things. And so some beautiful things can come out of those unmet needs, or
Yeah.
those some terribly destructive things
Yeah.
can come out of those wounds from our past. It's all a matter of how we put the handlebars on it and navigate that.
Yeah.
And he had the awareness to say, "Hey, I know what's going on here. I know what this is about."
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
that's yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to think. I don't know. Are you doing any life changes right now, or got any? I don't know, things you're gonna try to improve about yourself in the near future at all? Summer's coming up.
I don't know, man. I look at my I look at my kids and I look at my lifestyle and I say I could be a lot more healthy and I want to be around longer and I want to have more energy and I want to yeah. And so I want to change things, but yeah, I mean it's driving 45 minutes to work,
Yeah.
sitting on my duff doing those things, driving back 45 minutes. It's just the where do I find the time
Yeah.
to do all those things? And then there's the part of me, the creative part of me that's starving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this feeds that a bit. And so, yeah, it's kind of you gotta sacrifice something,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. It's yeah, it's really hard, and I kind of, and I think that's realistic to say. In the future, my life is going to look a little different. There may be some fewer responsibilities. I can focus. I'll have a little more time maybe to focus on my health, exercise, and um, but yeah. So it's just yeah. I've been sleeping more, and I think that's important. And I've learned recently the value of doing absolutely nothing and retreating. And sometimes that means just putting the phone away too,
Yeah.
because you're not really, I don't think you're truly resting. I mean, you could be laying down, but if you're constantly like scrolling and engaging, there's
Mm-hmm.
something, I mean, it's just that
Yeah.
dopamine thing keeps blasting, boom, 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 and you're never really in a place where you're calmed down. And it's tricky because you think you are. You think you're relaxing, but you're reading something that's stressing you out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to be informed.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Being
trying
informed is very stressful.
and maybe I mentioned that to you before, but years ago I couldn't deal with it. I just it turned off the news, and at that point I think I was justified in saying that hey, a lot of this is just sensational, and
Yeah.
so I was justified in just turning the stuff off, and I whatever.
Yeah.
And so now I'm a little more mature, and I'm listening to I don't know, maybe we talked about it, a little more balanced news sources,
Yep.
and now it seems like it's even worse because like the threats are you don't have to sensationalize this shit.
Right. Yeah. You
It's
don't.
it's real, and it's some of the stuff that's happening is just so significant, and if you truly care, if you truly acknowledge the weight of these things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people can just dismiss. I mean, and people say that to us a lot. I don't know how you can work with this population, and it's in for me. I don't even. It doesn't faze me.
Right.
It just rolls off my back.
Yep.
Some of those
Mm-hmm.
horrific shit that you could imagine
Yeah.
that I hear about, but I guess it doesn't have anything to do with me or my family,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't have to do
Mm-hmm.
with my kids'
Yeah. You can
future.
compartmentalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To answer your question, I take it where I can get it. Um, but I am learning the value of that whole idea. People talk about just relaxing on Sunday and not doing
Yeah.
anything, and there's some real value. You need to retreat. You need to do nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing means nothing.
Yeah. I mean, right. Like Sabbath, basically.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. It's not a bad idea.
no, it's not. Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean, I'm been on ever since the new year. I try to do dry-ish January, and what I had kind of settled on was I would allow myself to have a drink if I went out, and then on the weekends. But during Monday through Thursday, basically, if I was home, like I wasn't having anything at all. So, I'd drink a lot of bought some NA beers and trying to think what else I bought. Mainly that, and just stuff to kind of substitute that, because I've realized a long time ago that I've just gotten into the habit of always having, if I'm home and just relaxing, I got to have something that I'm sipping on, right? And of course, it doesn't have to have alcohol in it. So I've tried to substitute, and that for the most part through the month, it worked pretty well. I've kind of just slipped a little back into my normal patterns, but I'm also trying to work out, and that's just been a lifelong, constant battle. I had reactivated my gym membership, and I was. What I try to do when I make changes like this is I try to just say, like, how can I just build? What is going to be the easiest way, say, to get my butt to the gym, right? Because I'm not getting up in the morning, because I'm not a morning person. I have to get up for work as it is, and getting up earlier and then going to the gym doing something I already just hate. It's not going to happen. It's just not realistic. Coming home and then, going back out later, that's not going to happen either. Because once I'm home from work, I'm home. Like it's a lot to get me back out of the house, especially to do something I don't like. Right. So, what I've been doing when I've been successful, although I had a arm injury that kind of put me out for the week. But no, I just go right after work. I'll wear my shorts under my pants. I've got my shoes already. I'm wearing my socks. I've got I'll wear like a button down shirt over like a whatever t-shirt I'm wearing, and then I can just go straight there after work. No excuses. Mm-hmm. Just get there, go in the locker room, take my button down shirt off, and I'm ready to go, do my workout, and then head home. And that works.
And you've made it as easy as possible.
I've made it as easy as possible and built it into my routine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tried to, remove all the barriers and obstacles out of the way, So yeah, and it's working.
Sure, until you look in the mirror and you see that the six pack is forming, and then you go, "That's good enough." I'm gonna.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, I want it to just be a routine. But I've never been one of those people. I just don't. I don't understand people who enjoy working out. God bless them, but I have no clue why you'd ever enjoy doing that. I've had some workouts once in a while where I actually enjoyed it, but for the most part, no. It's a chore for me. I don't. I just don't like. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it.
Yeah. Well,
or cardio is what I really don't like. Weightlifting's not as bad, and that's usually what I do.
It's boring.
Cardio is boring.
Like
it's just running on a treadmill is boring.
I'll go for a walk for like
2
hours, man, through the woods and stuff. Yeah. And I don't have any problems with that. But.
Yep. I've been better about that during the summer and spring, warmer months. Winter, it's a lot more difficult to just get the energy once again, because it's this time of year as well. It's we live in Michigan, so it's gray and cold and wet and gross outside. So it's hard to, even though I live surrounded by woods, it's still just it's hard to make yourself want to go out into like this crap, gray, depressing weather.
Yeah, I want to. I've been sick the last. Well, we've been sick eternally for the month of February, because the kids bring something new in every week. Everybody gets a chance to partake, and then a new one comes in the door. But one thing I kind of talked about a minute ago, just not doing anything. Mm-hmm. And being sick forces you to not do anything. And I'll say this, while I felt like shit physically, psychologically, I felt better. Because I just didn't have to. I could check out. I didn't have to worry about anything but just getting well. Mm-hmm. And so in a way, I was able to go back to work and kind of enter into that less just bogged down, less overwhelmed. I was a bit sharper, a bit... I don't know. So you're taking a look at that distinction between taking care of yourself physically, taking care of yourself psychologically, right? I mean, it's the biggest part, I think, is psychological, because that really ultimately flows into your physical. Yeah. I mean, I can yeah, give me muscle cramps or pulled muscle any day of the week over being stressed the hell out over
Mm-hmm.
some kind of
Yeah, for
situation,
sure.
because ultimately it's gonna wreak havoc on your body. And so, yeah, I guess it's I guess as I'm talking about it, the idea like, okay, how do I do that in the midst of all of my responsibilities and all the different things that are going on?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to think about that more, about how I just shut things off, and maybe that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just psychological rest. And I guess some people get that through meditation,
Yeah.
prayer, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, digging holes. I don't know. Um,
It's random.
hey, man, don't knock it till you try.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I struggle with the not doing anything as well. Even though I'm pretty good at it. At the same time, I always sit there. I have a. I don't know if I want to say I have a guilty like. Yeah, I do. It's hard for me to not do anything without feeling like I should be doing something. And kind of having that guilty feeling inside. You know, whether it's working on something like related to this, whether it's working on projects at home that I have a list of them that I still haven't touched. Um, it is it's hard for me to, even though I like I said I have no problem not doing anything, but at the same time the entire time
Hmm.
I'm usually there's just this internal kind of stress of always feeling like I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be doing this, I should,
Hmm.
and there's that word, right? Should, shouldn't should on yourself. So I know better,
Yeah,
but
I should be doing this. I should be doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, there's and that's good. I mean, whatever, on a certain level.
Hmm.
I got some people that are never happy. And that comes down, I think, yeah, most of the time it comes down. The people I know that are always like that, I should be doing something more. I should be, always. They had parents, they had fathers in particular that were always hammering on their ass all the time about, you know, doing this and getting this done and wasting your time sitting around and being lazy. And
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
so, um, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I think it's more that I have this internal picture of who I want myself to be. And in certain ways I am that person, or becoming that person, and then other ways I'm not. And I know what I should, once again, should be doing to be that person I want to be, but I'm not. I'm
Hmm.
not doing it. So, and once again, it creates that guilt. So it's kind of learning to just, I guess, be okay with yourself, right?
I don't think you should be okay with yourself. I don't.
No, you
I,
should be just sitting
I mean, there's
there.
times. I mean, there's certainly. I think you should always be trying to get the most out of yourself, and
Hmm.
uh, I think to the point where it starts to become unhealthy and it causes you problems to be
Yeah.
unable to relax or enjoy something or to be present.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, there's that balance. I got some friends that just, yeah, they should probably kick up the shoulds a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's, I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of like when it makes me think of that statement. And I don't know if you ever had like training for DBT or dialectical
Sure,
behavioral
yeah.
therapy before. Uh, Something you'll always talk about when you get trained for that is, DBT says that the client's always doing the best they can. And that's, always a point of debate. Are they doing the best they can? Are we always doing the best we can? I think most people would say, well, no, of course we're not always doing the best we can. But DBT would say, yeah, you are. You're always doing the best you can. What do you think?
Oh, that's way too freaking broad, man.
Yeah.
I would say people a lot of times do the best they can within their level of awareness,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
I think when they don't recognize like the impacts of some of their behaviors, or they don't have a real good understanding of that, then they don't behave accordingly. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a, and this is something I guess that goes against what a lot of people in our profession look at. I mean, I think we need to balance, compassion and understanding
Mm-hmm.
with some, personal
Oh
responsibility.
yeah.
And yeah, and like I mentioned before, just like at some point walking away from people to say, okay, you do your thing. We're not doing any of us any good, either of us any good by continuing to try to
Mm-hmm.
make this happen. So yeah, maybe they are doing the best that they know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, they're not going to do any better.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it kind of makes me think of if I'm doing trauma therapy with somebody and they're beating themselves up about, oh, I should have did this or I should have did that, in this situation, this traumatic situation, and I'll usually tell them, well, you only feel this way because you're looking back,
Sure.
and now that like,
Yeah.
but in that moment, no,
Yeah.
you were only gonna do what you did
Sure.
because you were that person at that moment that was gonna do that, make that choice.
Sure. And I say
And
something like that, you can't hold your past self accountable to your current level
sure.
of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, where the guilt comes in is like, well, I have, if I have this level of understanding and I'm not acting on it because whatever, lack of motivation, lack of discipline, lack of, you know, whatever, then that's where the guilt comes from, right? Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But then you should also be willing to accept the consequences of whatever that
Yeah,
action
of
or
course.
inaction is. And
Yep,
so
absolutely.
I'm going to
Right. Yep. And of
get
course, the consequences aren't that bad, right?
okay.
Ultimately, for the type of stuff I'm talking about. Oh, I
Sure.
didn't get that project done. Oh, well, it wasn't done
Hmm.
yesterday either. Everything's been fine, right? It's only something that it's maybe an aesthetic thing,
Hmm.
that I want to get done, to make my house look better or something like that. But it's not.
Yeah.
It being left undone is not uncomfortable enough
Sure.
to get me right to motivate.
It's small potatoes, or it's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
cumulative.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and because it takes a long time for the consequences of our
Yeah.
behaviors to build up,
Yep.
we don't really have that.
But
Yeah.
then there's discipline, and I always define discipline as doing the shit you don't want to do. Like that, for me, that's what it is.
Hmm.
Like, you have to be disciplined about working out. Like, that's what I have to tell myself.
Hmm.
And because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you should, the benefits of it. You feel better if you do it. You feel better about yourself. You feel better mentally. You feel better physically, all that. But I don't want to do it. But that's where discipline comes in. Doing the shit you don't want to
Sure.
do. And then you come up with ways to make it easier to do the shit you don't want to do. And that's why, I talked about the routine of just going after work, because I'm not going to do it then. I'm not going to do it after work. I'm not going to do right. So yeah, you become aware of the problem. You try to figure out solutions to the problem, by gaining information, which is what, we talk about with self-awareness. And then after you've tried different avenues to make the change, whatever that is, there's going to be things that work, and if you do them, will work, but you don't want to do them, right? And then once again, that's where discipline comes in, and then you've got to try to bridge that gap by problem solving. What's the least painful way to get myself to do this on a regular basis? And that's really the key, doing it on a regular basis.
Hmm.
The consistency, which, we talked about a little bit ago with, you get to that comfortable point. You're just kind of like, meh,
Hmm.
I can skip today. And then you're like, meh, I can skip again. I can skip again.
Yeah.
You know.
That's dangerous.
Yep.
And I was reading a book that was talking about how you should, if you're going to like, don't skip a day, just do, I think
Do
that was at Atomic Habits or whatever. It's
yeah.
just do a little bit of it, do
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
5 minutes of whatever that workout
Right.
was or that routine.
Yep. If you usually work out for an hour and you're just not feeling it, at least make it to the gym and do something. Maybe work out for, even if it's like 20 minutes, doing something to get your butt there and, you know. Yeah.
Run to the mailbox.
Yeah. I suppose you could rationalize your way into barely doing anything.
Hey, it would be something though.
Right. Yeah. So there's that. And that's why you need accountability, and that's why you need.
But I was thinking about being aware of the consequences, being aware of what you do, and I get to that idea like the most evil people are the people that know what they're doing and continue to
And know it's hurting other people.
and continue to do those things, and otherwise known as politicians
Yeah.
or attorneys
Or CEOs.
yeah. And that's kind of that's a whole nother level of evil and antisocial. I mean, and a lot of times people, when they hear antisocial personality, we talk about antisocial personality disorder. People think that means you don't want to talk to people,
Right.
But and like when it comes to like antisocial personality disorder, that means
It's basically what people think of when they think of a sociopath.
yeah, fuck your rights, fuck whatever it is. I'm going to do what I want and
People
get what
are
I want
objects.
based on and I there's that shared. I imagine within any large group, there's this shared mentality that people have that enables them to continue thinking in these ways and justifying it. So even then, I think for some of these people, they've allowed themselves. It's very easy to convince themselves that they're not doing any wrong because everybody else within their system is doing the same thing and spinning the same kind of narratives. And so, like with the criminal population, the idea that no one's ever done anything for me, and this guy had it coming, or whatever that might be. It allows them to continue practicing this nastiness, and because otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it if they really acknowledged what they were doing. They wouldn't be able to continue that behavior. And so whatever, when you get churches that people can practice the nastiness and is somehow explain it away based on the shared kind of understanding in the political and the ultra wealthy way of doing things, or anything you want to do to maintain a level of antisocial behavior. And it's funny how, at least for me personally, I came out of that. I used to be very much a criminal back when I was younger, my teenage years, and all my friends, we had that mentality that anything goes. And the awareness. Talk about awareness when the lights come on, and you're like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do you think that started, and where do you think it came from?
"Oh man, come on, dude, that is a heavy." I'm just saying, you might need a little more than an hour to explain that one.
Maybe some other time.
But no, I'll say this. Okay, so
How does criminogenic thinking begin?
I'll tell you how it started with me being ADHD.
Okay.
Being ADHD and always in trouble and always being criticized. And I say this a lot, that you want to meet the most offensive people in the world, talk to some ADHD people because they're always in trouble and they've always got some explanation or some kind of reason for why they're doing what they're doing before you even get your judgment out of your mouth. And so, early on in life, it wasn't a big deal. It didn't show up much. But as time went on, the behaviors continued to get me in more and more trouble. And I tried, man. I tried to do the best I could. I strived to get on honor roll. I mean, my grades were there, but it would always be, this impulsive behavioral thing that would come up. And at a certain point, you say, I don't want to feel bad about me anymore. I don't want to feel, yeah, I don't want to, the checks and checks and checks on the board next to my name. And so
Mm-hmm.
you become intentional about it. It's like, oh, I guess I'm a bad kid. Well, if I'm going to be a bad kid, then
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to be a bad kid. And at that age, you get a bunch of other kids around you that encourage
Yep.
that behavior. And so now
Because they have the same mentality.
I'm getting the attention,
Yep.
and now I am
You're part of a community. You're
praised.
part of a group.
I'm praised
Yeah.
for these
You have belonging. Mm-hmm.
behaviors that I'm engaging in, and so you add the socioeconomic sort of disparities that occurred in the schools that was in, and dealing with pressures at home and all that other dysfunctional shit that was going on. And so it pushes you further and further into this. And then the administration of the schools, the leadership, and whatever, they just kind of make you into one of those others.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you've kind of gone down this path, and
Mm-hmm.
you're invincible, and when you're a kid, and you don't realize it. I've chosen to be this person. I've chosen to be this way because it's
Mm-hmm.
met all of my needs. But now I'm starting to experience the consequences
Yeah.
of some of these things.
Yep.
And so again, that's how that starts, at least for me. And there was a plenty of there to justify some of the things that I was dealing with, the anger that I had towards some of the people. There were some terrible characters that I had to deal with the teachers, and some of these people who were completely disrespectful, didn't have the patience or understanding to deal with somebody that was like me. But if there was somebody that would actually give me the time of day
Right.
and have the patience to really develop a relationship with me, then it was cool. It was usually the science teachers that were cool like that, and I don't
Yeah.
know what it is about them, but and so yeah, man, it's but that just kind of and all those people are and are readily available, and they're all kind of looking for the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, there's a great deal of that, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Take your pick as to what you want to join along with, whether it's you see that with I was never in the gangs and stuff, but it's the same formula.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
guys that we work with,
Yeah.
you're trying to get your needs met that weren't met in your home, and so
Right.
you find yourself on a B&E with some guy that's acting as your father figure, and the
Right.
next thing
Yep.
you know, you got a guy tied up in a chair, and he's telling you need to kill this fucking guy.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, and jump ahead a few weeks later, you spend the rest of your life in prison.
Yep.
So I'm thankful that
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I certainly could have, but if I was planted in the right soil,
Yep.
I could have totally been in that
Mm-hmm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think that's true for probably most people. If you're planted in the right soil, you probably are going to end up in a certain way. I
yeah,
mean, I don't think it's that's completely true, but you know, um,
and
I've had many prisoners where I've looked at their lives and I'm like, yeah, if I was born into your situation, I'd be in prison too.
yeah. And that judgment, oh boy, these people, they
Yep.
serve a great purpose for us, because now we've got someone to elevate ourselves to.
Yep. Scapegoat.
And it's like, man, haven't got a fucking clue. You don't have a fucking clue as to what it's like to have to deal with these kinds of pressures, to have
Right.
to survive.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's so nice to be able to have these people off and at a distance, locked behind bars, without having to take a look at them, like, and
Mm-hmm.
look in their eyes, and shit. I don't know. So that's a big trigger for me.
Yeah.
When I hear people just kind of saying everybody's got the same opportunities,
Oh
everybody's
yeah,
got,
yeah, yeah.
fuck you,
Absolutely not.
fuck you, you're stupid. I'm sorry. These are strong beers, but you
Yeah,
don't
we
you
don't
don't
live in a
get it.
meritocracy. That's a
You don't
joke.
get it.
That's yeah.
It's I mean, yeah, and I've said this. I say this a lot. and I said this a lot. But whatever you can imagine, whatever you can think of, whatever the extent of where your mind could go when you think about the horrible shit that could happen to people, it happens to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say if you can, the worst thing you can possibly imagine that you could do to somebody or that happened to somebody has happened.
Yeah.
At some point in history, it's happened.
Go ahead. Come up.
You
Yeah,
know?
figure it out.
Come up. Yeah, the worst
Power
possible
tools.
scenario.
Yep, probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It makes me crazy when I, read, especially like comments on social media. You'll read an article about someone getting into trouble. They go to prison for such and such.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might be horrible. But it's like, you don't know. You don't know what this person went through. You don't know, or oh my gosh. I remember one time when I was doing an internship at a hospital, we had a guy who was this is back in, man, this is like in the 20, it must have been like 2000, it was like 2009. Okay, so we had this guy who he was here illegally. He was an illegal immigrant, and he got into a car accident. He was drunk and killed somebody. And I had, it was me and the person who I was interning with, the person supervising me. It was us, and then there was a judge that was there, and we had to be present at bedside when this guy came out of his. He was like in a coma. He came out of the coma, and he's like just awake. He's just getting oriented to, everything. Doesn't really know what happened, and I was there when the judge and then they had interpreter, talking, for her, to him, tell him what happened. And, just to look at, just the complete, the guy was, of course, just completely stunned.
Yeah.
Like you would be, total, shock. And, look, yeah, this guy was driving drunk, right? And that is wrong. And people, it's horrible, especially when it, something, tragic happens like that, where someone ends up dying. But, number one, I mean, how many of us have been over the legal limit, which is tiny,
Sure.
and technically would be drunk and drove
we're over the legal
right?
limit right now.
And yeah, exactly. And if you got in an accident, you'd be called a drunk driver, right?
Yeah.
And even if it completely wasn't your fault, oh well, you were intoxicated, you were above the legal limit, you're drunk driving, and you put, you read the article in the paper, and you're going to look like a monster, Oh, and of course, I read, this guy was in the paper or in the news, and I'm reading the comments on social media, and I remember, like, of course, people are, upset about him being drunk, being a drunk driver, but also he's illegal. And I kept thinking, like, how is that really even relevant? You know what I'm saying?
And
like,
I think it has
what does
to
that
do,
honestly have to do?
It adds to the story. I mean, it's just they follow these narratives of a villain. We need a fucking villain.
Citizens get drunk and get in car accidents all the time. Sure. What does this have to do with his, whether he
it
was
makes
here
him
legally
more
or
wrong.
Not. I guess, yeah.
It makes him more evil. And I had a buddy of mine who, I hadn't talked to him for years, but he ended up, he's a sweet dude. I mean, he just had some bad shit happen in his life, and I don't know, whatever. He got into some kind of deal where he had an accident, and probably it was like a mutual road rage thing is what it sounds like. But the way that it was written in the press was like, here's this guy who had a criminal background. He was trying to make some dab or some shit, and he like blew up his kitchen or something. This monster with a criminal background. And then the other guy who died in this road rage kind of thing, he was an Army veteran and served his country and all this other shit. And it's like, all right, dude, you don't know what happened there. And, they took this guy's mugshot. He looked, he looked kind of rough. He's a big dude, but I was just looking at that, and it was like, oh, okay. So since you've got this, just two pieces of information can basically damn a person.
Yeah.
He looks this way.
Yep.
He looks rough, and he had a incident in the past with drugs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Case closed.
Right.
Let's fucking forget everything else that comprises a human being.
Right.
And just go with this. And so people just eat it up.
Yep.
It's such an easy, lazy formula
Yep.
to just sell news. It's
Pull
so
out these
fucking irresponsible.
these specific, little data points.
Yeah.
Ignore all the other shit.
Yeah.
And then you just blow that up. And then, and of course the public's always looking for a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Always looking for that person we can just project all of our hatred and anger and,
Let's save everybody
onto.
some time. It's sex offenders.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're the lowest of the low.
We're going to get in trouble talking about this.
No, I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, even within the correction system,
Oh, yeah.
everybody's got somebody that they can look down on. Oh, fuck the fact that I killed 50 people.
Right.
At least I'm not
rape a child.
Yeah, at least I'm not a child molester. Yeah. Well, there's something about that Gerald. He's a ruthless murderer, but at least he doesn't fuck babies.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, whatever. You guys are all kind of in the same park, and we all are. Yeah. That's my point. As human beings,
right. Well, and then most of these people, even the ones who quote unquote, are raping children, and it's horrible.
Oh, I guess
it is horrible. But you sit down and talk to them, and 9 times out of 10, they were once the victim.
Yeah.
They were once the person being written about in the paper who was a victim of somebody else.
No, it doesn't excuse it. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains how people end up going in these paths.
And that's what I wanted to bring it back to the this illegal immigrant, because even back then, this is a time when Obama had just been elected a couple of years ago or a year or two ago, and it was racism's over, right? And I remember, and not obviously not literally, but that's kind of how a lot of people thought, I think. And I remember having this thought, illegal immigrants are the new thing to be quote unquote racist about, right? The thing that we're
socially acceptable racist
it has
thing.
Nothing to do with your, whether you're legal or illegal, has nothing to do with what kind of person you are. But that label, I'm gonna, project all my hatred on you because you are quote unquote illegal. Just like back in the day, I'm gonna project all my hatred on you because you are, not the same color as me, which is even stupider. But
if we didn't have all these. We didn't have the luxury of having this cornucopia of people to judge. We'd be nitpicking over the size of your nostrils or fucking pizza toppings or, it's just
because people are, we have this thing in us, so we want to be tribal and we want to form our little groups and in groups and out groups and all that, but yeah, like you said, though, I mean, obviously, this guy was driving drunk. Yeah, I'm not saying he shouldn't be held accountable for his behavior, of course. And, or, people who are sex offenders, of course they should be held accountable for their behavior. But if you were in the same situation that person was growing up, you might be a sex offender. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I mean, you can, I guess, don't have this, I don't know.
Holier than thou.
I can validate
Holier than thou.
I can validate people's anger and but be grateful for your distance from these things. Mm-hmm. But for the grace of God, there go I. My mother would say
my
that.
My mom. Oh, that's funny you say that. I've had that rattling around my brain for the past 10 minutes, and that's exactly what my mom used to tell me. I remember, I'd be a kid. I remember one time I was a kid, and we were sitting in the car, and there was, someone who was developmentally disabled or, as we said back then, retarded. And I'm, of course, as, a little kid, I'm pointing at them, and my mom's immediately, there for the grace of God go I. you know.
Yeah.
And I would just be like, oh, dang it, Mom. Like, I know you're right, but
Oh, that's gosh, your mom was just such an ableist saying that. She's judging it. It's
she
probably fucking awesome.
ableist.
I'm just whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I'm joking around, but you don't know. You've never been Down syndrome. It could be awesome.
Maybe.
Those are the
I mean,
nicest, sweetest
oh man.
people.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I know what you're saying. That's kind of
I'm just
the
being
general
dumb,
view, but
but
yeah, no, I know.
you think about that. You know that.
There's also severe cases that,
I know.
they go through a
Yeah,
lot of struggles though.
sure. But yeah, I don't know. But in general, though, they're just
Yeah. No, I know. I know what you're
nice.
saying. Every person with that
You
disorder
know,
I've
they're
met
they're a
has
lot better
always.
than there's a lot. I'd rather hang out
Hmm.
with them any day than
Yep.
some of the folks
Yeah, for real.
that this world elevates, I guess.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, that's yeah, whatever. I'm a mammal too, so yeah, I got to check that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I've and you and I have both been on that end of things. I think taking a look at before you get into the criminal justice system, the ideas and the judgments that you make.
Hmm.
Um, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
But and I guess you have to have grace with people in their ignorance of those things. And
Hmm.
I mean, like in having these conversations with people, like to oh man, is it exhausting to try to reason and explain people that have their own understanding of life and their own triggers.
Hmm.
And I think that in our culture, it's so easy. It's commonplace to just say, okay, this person's racist. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't look at it like that. Look at
Right.
it like, oh, they're ignorant. Okay, they don't know.
Hmm.
And that's going to take something out of you. You're going to have to elevate yourself and put your fucking money where your mouth is
Yeah.
to have the patience to have some conversations
Patience. Yeah, I was just thinking
and
about that.
to develop these relationships where you just don't automatically just shut people out, because that's never going to do any kind of good. Anytime I've had a conversation with somebody that has been ignorant in that kind of way,
Yeah.
it's taken some time, and
Hmm.
and that's it. But it takes a lot. That's the turning of the other cheek kind of
Yeah.
thing. That
Yeah.
it takes a, and that's hard.
Yeah, it makes me think of that. Daryl. I can't remember his last name.
That like movie in the
That
'80s about the
no, no, no,
cyborg
no,
kid.
no. The African American guy. You've probably seen him before. He's been on Rogan. He's been on some other podcasts. He
Daryl,
collects.
African American Daryl.
Yeah, I think his
I
name's
don't.
Daryl something.
I don't
But he
believe.
collects clan outfits from people he's essentially converted out of the clan because he's formed relationships
Is
with
that the
them.
piano guy?
He is like a blues artist too. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
does some. He's like also a musician,
Yeah.
but what he's known for is being like this guy who's made all these relationships with white supremacists and has deconverted a lot of them, and just through relationships
Yeah.
and just getting to know them and just being patient and yeah,
Oh, wait a minute. What I was thinking wasn't correct, right? I
right,
mean, so that's the big, to me, like racism is just, let's get rid of the word and just make it ignorance. You get what I'm saying.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, if you, the biggest thing for I think any sort of stereotyping is exposure.
yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
don't have exposure to a different type of person,
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's like American History X, right? You ever see that
yeah,
movie?
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
sure.
how that's how he, Edward Norton's character, kind of got out of that movement. Was he went to prison, got
Yeah,
paired up with this
sure.
black guy who they did laundry together, and eventually became friends. And yeah, he started realizing like, oh god, my beliefs are actually pretty stupid.
Hmm.
Like, it was really a dumb way to think about the world and about people. Right. Like that's usually the conversation I have with racist prisoners when I'm talking to them is I'll say, okay, but come on, right? You've
Yeah.
met there's you've met some good, black folks or some good Hispanic folks, right?
Well,
I'm
I
sure you have, right? And they'll admit, yeah, yeah, I have. And it's like you met some shitty white folks, right? There's a lot of shitty white people out there, right? Yeah, I guess there are. Yeah, right. So there's shitty white people, shitty black people, shitty, good black people, good, right? Like it has nothing to do
yeah. Well, I tell
with the
yeah,
amount of
folks.
melanin in your
So
skin. This is so silly. What are we doing? What are we still talking about this
what
for?
I said to I told you this before, but I had a boss that I worked with. He was a black guy, and we had ugly conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like really bad conversations that would make a lot of people cringe. But,
Yeah.
it was great, and I'd be like, man, most of the black people I've encountered, I've had bad relationships with or bad experiences with. And he's like, well, most of the white people I've engaged with, I've had
Mm-hmm.
bad experiences with too. And it was like, wait a minute. I think we're both right because human beings in general are shitty. If you take a look
Right.
at, you pick out your average
Yeah.
person, right? I mean, okay, chances are I mean, how many people can you trust in your life,
Right.
right? How many people listen to you when you talk to them? No, I mean, so people in general,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, so being a person automatically gives you a 50% chance of being a butthole.
Right.
So, you know, and then, so I don't know. So it
Yeah, I
was,
mean, and ultimately, I do think it does go back to like it has like deep. Not to get like all nerdy, but it has like deep evolutionary origins, right?
sure.
Like the way you would keep yourself safe if you are in like a group or a tribe is to if you see someone who
Yeah.
doesn't look like you or is different than you, well, you got to kill them because they could be dangerous, right? And
Yeah.
that's where that comes from. I think ultimately it's deeply like in just who we are
Yeah.
as humans is we want to create those in and out groups, and it just comes from this just survival instinct of oh, you don't look like me, you must be dangerous, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep you at a distance, or if you come, yeah. And it just continues to this day, and it's like we know it's irrational, we know it's
But I think a lot of people don't have an awareness of that.
no, I
This is
think
what's
you're
at
absolutely,
play.
yeah, I think you're
This
right.
is what's going
Yep,
on.
and then it gets back to the
A-
topic at hand.
And that's getting back to, I mean, you take a look at any, well, what I was talking about is,
Marginalization.
well, yeah, we all feel wounded and marginalized in
Yeah.
some way. We all feel victimized in some way. And some of that is really hard to deal with. That's
Mhm.
the barrier that keeps people from communicating and understanding. They just shut it down
Yeah.
right away. The first thing that people have judged me or criticized me about this, I'm just gonna just shut it down and attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so we can get into that later if we
Yeah.
talk about like defenses and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that being somebody who wants to have communication that has the insight to say this person is wounded, you have to again be willing to take some of those strikes and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of bob and weave for a bit
Mm-hmm.
with somebody until they can get to the point where they trust you and they're willing
Yeah.
to listen to you, and that is hard
It
to
is hard.
do. And sometimes it's just like, man, you don't have the energy or the patience for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. In whatever, wherever you find it, you take your pick of a marginalized population and see how quickly intolerant they are to, and rightfully so. But uh,
Intolerant to who?
anybody that has an ignorant, uninformed perspective,
Okay.
it's gonna keep people from having conversations and uncomfortable conversations. And
You're saying a marginalized population has low tolerance towards people who have ignorant perspectives. Is that what you're?
I think so. A
Okay.
lot of ways, whatever it is, if you've experienced it,
Oh, I see.
if you've experienced something that has impacted your life
Yeah.
significantly,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody else is speaking lightly about it or
Yeah.
from a
Oh, I see
place
what you're
of
saying.
being
Okay. Yeah.
uninformed, they're going to just jump all over your ass. And so
Right.
uh, that doesn't work.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
And so I don't know. I think we just have to be able to, everybody have conversations about these things and be okay
Mm-hmm.
with the ugliness of
Mm-hmm.
some of these conversations
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that ignorance is just a part of the process
Yep.
in getting together.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, people that
Because
make a
ignorance
living,
is a lack of awareness.
but people, yeah, yes. But people, I think, make a living off of, and they get against a lot of those
Yep.
unmet needs met,
Mm-hmm.
like by
Oh
being
yeah.
a part of this coalition that's
Yep.
just like gonna fight, and we've got an
Mm-hmm.
identified enemy and all this other horse shit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not it. And it's funny, like at my where I was at before, I'd have conversations about race with one of my other coworkers who happened to be an African American.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could see people squirming.
Yeah.
And it was like both he and I were like, we're just kind of just talking this. But
Mm-hmm.
people are so terrified
Yeah.
to say something wrong. They feel like they're just going to get fucking jumped on.
Yeah.
And good luck. That's not sustainable. And so, I don't know. I'm not saying this.
Yeah. You have to have grace. Ultimately, you have to have
And a sense of humor.
and a sense of humor.
And recognize the mutual like human experience, and
Right.
and recognize that just being kind of ignorant and uninformed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that came up all the time was hanging out with some people back in the day was like, oh, what? Well, white people don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
What? So it was fun. It was like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
figuring each other out, and I don't know, and that's cool. But I think there's a lot of people that have, a position that maybe in some way they benefit from that
Mm-hmm.
division, and and that,
Yeah, on both sides.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
On both sides of the political spectrum, whether you're raging and going off about DEI and woke stuff, or you're, going off about all these dumb, ignorant, whatever, and maybe they are dumb and ignorant, but that's not that's that's not going to get you anywhere ultimately,
yeah.
you know. So
Dumb, ignorant people come in all sorts of varieties, right?
true story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's some fucking. Oh, who's safe?
Hmm?
Oh, I don't know who's safe to pick on.
Oh,
But yeah, just because I'm okay, just because you're gay and I'm calling you a dumbass doesn't mean I'm. No, you're dumbass. I'm not a homophobe. You're a dumbass. You get what I'm saying?
so yeah, so it's okay to pick on the dumbasses, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if they can help it,
That-
if they've got the capacity to not be a
Scapegoat the
dumbass,
dumbasses.
I mean, okay, if they're locked into the dumbassery and they've got some cognitive impairments, no,
Yeah.
shame on me. But
No, but I like how we started with like personal awareness, making changes, just like about yourself on an individual basis, and we've kind of branched out to now like the social level. We've moved the circle.
yeah, well,
From the
it's all the same,
individual
isn't
now.
it?
Right. Well, yeah.
The macro and the micro are all.
It is. It is, man. Yeah, the macro and the micro are just different versions of the same thing.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I mean, people behave collectively the same way they do on an individual basis.
For the same reasons.
For the same reasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
This meets my needs in some way or another.
Mm-hmm. Keeps me safe.
Yeah. Gives me a sense of stability,
Mm-hmm. Belonging.
control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely truth to the we all want the same things. And there, we are all at the same time. We are all kind of different too, right? You know, and that's okay as well.